Hello everybody, my name is Deja and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm starting a TBR jar picks my reads reading vlog. If you don't know, I have a TBR jar, which you can see right here, that has all my physical books in it, and it actually has like a number and a letter on it, and that corresponds to a row and a column on a spreadsheet, which has all of the books on it. And for the most part, it's color coordinated. The white pieces of paper are new. They're all like the books that I've held mostly this year because I ran out of most of these colors, so all the new ones are just going to be white, but it has the majority of my TBR in it. And so every single month in my TBR videos I pick one book from the jar, and a lot of times I get genres that I don't typically read as much anymore, or a lot of YA books, because I started collecting books and watching booktube when I was 11 years old in 2013. I feel like I talk about this a lot, but that's when I started. So I've been collecting a lot of books over a lot of time, and I've gotten rid of a lot of like my YA fantasy and stuff like that, but I still do have a decent amount left. While I'm still interested in those books, which is why I have them, they're not generally what I gravitate to first, which is why I love the TBR jar, because it pushes me to pick up books that I don't typically pick up. And so I also said that at the end of the year, any of the 12 books that I pick over the course of the year that I did not read, I have to unhaul. So obviously we are in May now, which means I have pulled 5 books, and in January I read the pick, but February through April I did not. So I had 3 previous picks I had to read, as well as the May pick, which is 4 books. So I was like, this will be the perfect reading vlog to do, where I read all 4 picks. And I actually filmed an intro for this reading vlog while I was still at school at the very beginning of the month, and somehow it got lost. So I'm re-introing it for y'all, and we will go over all the books that I'm going to read in this reading vlog. So here they all are. I don't remember which book was for which month, but I have A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. This is a YA fantasy about mermaids. And then I have Kisscut by Karen Slaughter. This is the second book in the Grant County series, which is just a series that follows a detective and a medical examiner and the brutal cases that go on in their town. Then I have The Other Black Girl. This one follows a black woman who works at a publishing company, and she is the only black woman who works there, and then another black woman starts working there. It is like a literary fiction thriller. And then the last book is The Dark Days Club by Allison Goodman. This is a historical fiction fantasy. So these are the 4 books that I'm going to be reading in the vlog, and so we are going to start off with A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. So let's jump back to when I first started this book.
Pretty girl, Abigail, pretty girl, Bacon Bear, pretty girl, curly hair, she wavy, pretty girl, everywhere. I see pretty girl, all across the world. I see pretty girl, everywhere I go. I see pretty girl, all across the world. I see pretty girl.
I know I'm in front of like this blank white wall, which is kind of strange, but this wall actually used to have sticky notes on it. We had a sticky note wall, and we would just put our favorite quotes and everything on here, but we're moving out, so I had to take them all down. Actually, let me get it and I'll show y'all. I just bought this cheap composition book from Dollar Tree, and I put junior year sticky note wall, and I put all our names. Don't make fun of my handwriting. I know it's bad. I can make it good if I try, but I wasn't really trying. So I will have this forever, and it just has like all of our sticky notes, and like some of them, like we would like respond. I said, this is from me. I said, I can't stand Anna, because she probably did something annoying. She know I love her. And then she put a little sad face. And so like some of them were like in response to each other, and I kept them together, even right here. So we just have and we put random stuff up there, like a leaf. There's this one that's a bone that fell off of something from Halloween. And so I just have all these sticky notes of all these different memories, different drawings, and just really funny stuff. So I'm really happy that I will have this forever. Sorry if you're also hearing any noise in the background. I'm about to cook, so I put a pot of water on because I'm making this pasta because my boyfriend, he's having a cookout tomorrow, and so I asked him what he wanted me to bring, and he said this. So that's what I'm making. I'm making like a whole tray of it. It's gonna be a lot, but I'm trying to use up all my frozen chicken that I had in the freezer. And tomorrow for this cookout is the first time I'm meeting his parents, so I'm kind of scared. But we will hope for the best. I know it's gonna be fine. I know everything's gonna be great. I'm just an anxious girly, okay? So talking about the book now, A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. I am exactly 50% of the way in. I'm hoping to finish this one up today while I'm cooking, because I think it's like almost 5 hours left, which is less than 2 hours. So I'm hoping to finish this up today so I can start another book tomorrow, especially because I'm going to my boyfriend's cookout, which is an hour and 15 minutes away where he lives. So I will have that audiobook time. So this book, this one follows, I believe their names are Effie and Tavia, and they are best friends. They're not sisters, but they call each other sisters. And one of them is actually a siren. This book says that it's about mermaids, but mermaids and sirens in the story are very different. So one of them is a siren, and one of them is actually a mermaid, like a pretend one, like with the, like she puts on the tail and like swims around for people's entertainment. And so this book honestly is very, very slow, and I feel like the plot is getting lost. This story is more about black girls who happen to be sirens slash mermaids than actually about black girls who are sirens slash mermaids. It's more focusing on them being black than them being sirens. And I think that's completely fine, of course. Sorry, there was a hair stuck to my lip. I think that's completely fine. I love race commentary. I love commentary about being a black woman. There's a lot of things in talking here about police brutality, about different hair textures and just different styles and a lot of different just commentary things, but then also regular black girl things. And so I really like how the author has woven those into the story, but I really don't think that there's much plot. It's very, very slow. We just got to some of the stuff in the synopsis. Like there's a siren murder trial that has happened in the story, and there's also the siren in the story has let out her voice when she wasn't supposed to. And so it was like really bad, and then there's some other things that are going on as well, and those have just happened in the story. The synopsis is not long. I feel like the story is just very, very slow. I really, really love the girls' friendship and this found family that they have with each other, and literally the siren doesn't like to speak because of her voice, and she just kind of feels ashamed about being a siren, and so her friend often did sign language for her even in school and interpreted for her, and like I just love that relationship. But also the girls can be confusing sometimes, like their voices aren't very distinct. I feel like sometimes when I'm first starting a chapter, I'm like figuring out who's who, even though they like say the name. Sometimes I'm just like, who's that? Like who are we reading from? And so I feel like the story would honestly benefit from actually being from third person rather than first person, because the first person is kind of making it like harder to differentiate the girls. And as I said, really like not much has happened. It's like a fine book, and I really enjoy the commentary and the girls' relationship, but that's kind of it. There's not much plot, there's not much going on, and I'm kind of bored, frankly. Like there's nothing pulling me to pick up this book. Like I love commentary, but this one does have a lot of commentary specifically about violence and the struggles of being black, and I think that's fine, but it's not always what I look for, because it can be very traumatizing and triggering for me personally. So it's fine, and I like the commentary, but as I said, besides the commentary and their friendship, I don't really care. Like the girls themselves, I don't really care about them. I just like their relationship. As I said, there's not much plot, there's not much going on. It's very slow. The pacing is very off. The writing is nice, but it's still like young adult writing. And that's fine, again, because this is a young adult book and it's for a different audience. But nothing about the story standing out. I feel like there are other books that I've read and other stories that I enjoy more as a story and an actual narrative that have similar commentary, or just commentary that I enjoy about being a black woman in America. And obviously this is a big metaphor about like sirens and their voice, and these girls trying to find their voice as black women in America, and I love that. But again, as an actual story and as an actual narrative, I think that it's pretty mediocre. It's doing a lot of things that I really like, but that's not to overshadow the fact that it's not necessarily a good story. There's not good plot, there's not good pacing, and I think as like an actual book, this needed to be worked on more. That's where I'm sitting at. I'm not going to DNF it. I am going to finish it because, as I said, there are things that I'm enjoying about it, but I don't know how high of a rating this book is going to get for me. So let's see if I can finish it today. So I'm back because last night I was able to finish up A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow, and everything I said before basically is my final thoughts. I did enjoy the ending of this book more than I anticipated, so I think I'm going to give this one 2.5 stars because there was a lot of things I liked, a lot of things I didn't like, so I feel like it just kind of ended up being in the middle, so it's going to be a 2.5 star. Basically, literally everything that I said is my thoughts on this book, and I feel like the halfway point I was able to have a lot of complete thoughts. And so, as I said, the ending was better than I anticipated. I liked a lot of things that happened in the little chunk that I had left after I finished cooking. I would say like this part of the book, this little part, I really liked, and then the rest of it was just meh. So we are landing on a 2.5. So I'm about to go meet my boyfriend's parents. I've packed everything up, so I'm about to head out to go do that. I need to stop by the beauty supply and Dollar Tree, but I'm going to be going. So I think on my drive there, I'm probably gonna listen to some music because I have been really in a music mood. So I'll probably listen to some music, and then if I do start an audiobook, I think I'm gonna go with Kiss Cut by Karen Slaughter because this book was just kind of like disappointing for me, and it wasn't something that I absolutely loved, and I know that Karen Slaughter never disappoints me, so I feel like we will have kind of a redemption that I know for sure. So we are going to start Kiss Cut by Karen Slaughter. Okay, so I am back because I actually completely read Kiss Cut by Karen Slaughter. I know I probably should update y'all, but if you can't tell, I'm in a different location. I am back at my house, and so I was driving a lot back and forth from my boyfriend's house, and then with packing everything and then moving, I just honestly didn't have time, and I'm still unpacking my room as we speak. So yeah, and my hair for like 3 days looked a mess because it rained on us while I was moving out. It literally was raining, so I look like a mess. And I didn't want to update y'all looking like a mess. I just washed my hair today, so it's looking much better. This is the second book in the Grant County series. So in this book, we follow Sarah and Jeffrey. Sarah is the town's pediatrician and also the medical examiner, and then Jeffrey is the police chief, and they actually used to be married, and they are kind of starting to develop a relationship back, which started in the first book, and I feel like that's not a spoiler, but they are kind of starting to have some romantic tensions. And so obviously there was a case in the first book that they were, you know, a part of, and now we are following a second case where basically there was this girl who was holding, like a teenage girl was holding this teenage boy at gunpoint, and Jeffrey ended up having to shoot her and she ended up dying. But at the same time there was also a fetus, well, I guess it was really a baby because it was given birth to, and I think it was like found in like a toilet, and so they thought it belonged to this girl, and that's why she was holding him at gunpoint and stuff like that. But upon autopsy, it was revealed that this girl who was holding the guy at gunpoint, this young girl, she had a lot of years of abuse shown on her body and also some genital mutilation, and so they realized that that kid, the baby, could not have been hers based off the mutilation. So there is this kind of huge case about like who did this to this girl, and like the genital mutilation part of it, but then also the abuse, and then also like whose baby was this and why did they basically drown it. Karen Slaughter writes really graphic, heavy books, so I feel like if you're sensitive at all to any like child abuse, child trauma, child anything related to sexual acts, obviously it's very traumatizing and triggering for everybody to read those type of things because like duh, like nobody really like is happy about there being child predators out in the world. But if you are extremely sensitive to those things, I don't think that this would be the book for you because it is very graphic in nature, and I enjoy Karen Slaughter's writing so much, and I enjoy her characters, and I enjoy this world that she creates because people don't normally like detective kind of books, perspectives in thrillers, but I do, so I like that we have that. But then we also have Sarah, who is like this medical examiner slash pediatrician perspective, and I just really enjoy this series a lot. And honestly, I think I started this book before because a lot of the beginning sounded very familiar, and I was like, I think I've read this before, but it wasn't on my Goodreads or anything, so I just kept going along, and it ended up surprising me in the end. So I think I did start this at one point and just never finished it, which kind of had me shook because I don't remember starting this at all, but it sounded so familiar that I had to have started this previously. But I love Karen Slider. I just love this author's work and like the way that she writes. I like that it's dark. I like that it's gritty. I like that it dives into different topics that we don't normally talk about in society, but it's handled with such care and empathy and compassion, which I really like. I feel like, if you don't know, I used to read extreme horror. Specifically last year in 2023 is when I read the majority of the extreme horror that I've read, and I was super into it because, again, like it dives into these kind of extreme graphic things and topics that are kind of taboo to talk about in society, and I enjoyed that because I found it very cathartic. But extreme horror really puts me off now a lot because of the community, the people, the authors. Like, I just feel like a lot of the readers who read it have a lot of things not great going on with them based in what I've seen online. I'm not saying that everybody who reads extreme horror is bad or whatever. Like, there are probably perfectly fine normal people who read extreme horror like I did. I'm not saying that I'm normal, but I'm not like some of the people that I've seen on the internet, and some of the authors that I've seen are not great. A lot of them are also friends with each other and will shit on reviewers and readers that don't like their books or whatever. So it just kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. So I really like that I still have Karen Slaughter to fall back on, because while her books are not extreme horror, they're definitely just thrillers. They definitely have a darker element to them that a lot of thrillers don't have, and I really like being able to explore those kind of themes in a safer place and environment for me, because Karen, as I said, has so much care, compassion, and empathy, which I feel like is missing a lot of times from the extreme horror genre. I am really happy I read this. I think I'm gonna give it 4 stars, maybe 4.5. I did really like this one. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as the first one, but I did really like it and the topics that were explored. I think I might give it 4.5 because I did really enjoy it a lot, and I love her writing. I love her characters. I loved being back in this world with these characters and seeing how things from the last book impacted characters in this current book. There was a lot of that, and I really loved that, and I can't wait to continue on in the series. I don't own any of the other books in the series yet, but I will probably try and pick some up from like Pango or something, which they're probably cheaper on there because they are older published books. Yeah, this was published in 2002, so it is published quite a bit ago, and there are some things in it that I don't think are necessarily the most politically correct, but it's kind of a product of its time, and it's nothing really egregious or anything like that. They're just like little comments that are made that I'm like, like I wouldn't put that in a book today, but it's not like anything cancelable or anything like that. Anyways, the reading spread's about to end, so I'm gonna start the Dark Days Club next because I flipped a coin, heads for the Dark Days Club, tails for the other black girl. I got heads, so we're gonna be reading that. It's actually been another couple days. I feel like I've been so bad at reading and vlogging because I just like, it's not that I'm in a reading slump, I just honestly have not been in like the mood to read. I've been like wanting to watch YouTube and movies and stuff like that, but I need to buckle down, and I'm gonna try my best to finish this book today. I'm almost a third of the way into the Dark Days Club. I am on page 142, which is the beginning of chapter 10, and I am liking this book so far. It is definitely young adult, but it takes place in 1812, which is actually around the time of Bridgerton. Our main character, I would already forget her name, Lady Helen, she is about to present herself to the queen, and I was like, oh, that's very like Bridgerton-esque to me. I haven't read the books of Bridgerton, and I've only seen a couple episodes of the show, so I was like, oh, it's kind of reminding me of Bridgerton though. And so I looked it up, and Bridgerton does take place in the beginning of the 1800s in London, and this also takes place in London. So I was like, okay, a little bit of a familiar vibe, which I was liking. And so she, as I said, needs to present herself to like the queen, or basically have her debut presentation in the royal court of George III, and she feels like her life should obviously revolve around things of that nature, and like gowns, and like making sure that she's good for her presentation. But on the night before, like the eve of her presentation, she finds out a maid disappeared from her place that she resides. And so her parents passed away, I believe. I know for sure her mom passed away because they talk about the mom and her death a lot, but I believe it was both her parents. And so she lives with her aunt and her uncle and her brother as well. Everybody's obviously pressuring her to get married. She's kind of drawn into the darker side of London when she is trying to investigate the disappearance of this maid. And she also meets this guy, Lord Carlston, who is one of the few to stop the perpetrator, which is a cable of demons that has infiltrated all levels of society. We haven't gotten too far into like the investigation, like into it. Like we have a little bit, but it's mostly been like her finding out and then like her trying to do like her normal stuff, but then also thinking about this girl. So we haven't gotten too far into like the darker elements and like these demonic elements, but it's also been hinted at that she has a certain power, which I find really interesting. So I'm excited to learn more about that and excited to see more about Lord Carlston. I'm pretty sure they're probably going to have a romance as well. I don't know if this is a series. It probably is. So it'll probably not like really continue in this book. It probably will. But like we won't be at a happily ever after or happily for now standpoint at the end of this book. But they begin to investigate the conspiracy together, and that's what this book is about. As I said, I'm enjoying it so far, and I enjoy the writing. It is a little bit more historical than I'm like used to. I haven't really read much historical fiction or even historical romance. I've read a couple of both, but not a ton. And I feel like even my history with historical romance, I feel like the majority of them have been literally Taylor Jenkins Reid. And not saying that she doesn't write historical fiction, but she writes more modern historical fiction. I feel like her writing is not like Regency London writing, you know what I'm saying? So it is a little bit of an adjustment on the writing and making sure that I'm grasping everything that's happening. And so I'm really hoping to finish this today. It's already 2:30. I literally have been playing games and laying in my bed. So I did get myself ready, and I do have some work for my remote job I need to do. It's just a little bit, but I really wanted to go to Barnes & Noble today. But one of my goals, which I will talk about more because I have a summer reset video coming up, and I will be going over my summer goals in that video, but one of them is to try and get out the house every day because I have a bad habit of like staying inside. Like I'm very much a homebody. So last week and this week upcoming, I literally don't have any in-person anything at all. My work is remote, and then starting in a couple weeks, not next week but the week after, I have an internship starting, but it's literally only like late morning, early afternoon, Tuesday through Thursday. So Friday through Monday, I don't have anything that's obligated to get me out the house. And I have a bad habit where I will literally stay inside for 2, 3, 4 days straight. And I don't think that's good for my mental health. So I'm trying to like get out, like even if it's going to Barnes & Noble, going for a walk, going to the park, going to see a movie, going to do this, going to do that. And my 2 roommates who are still in the city that I live, one of them moved back to live with her parents, and then 2 of them are still where I live. We have a summer bucket list of things we want to try and do this summer, and I also obviously have other friends too, so I'm going to try and like go see friends, go to movies, go to parks, go to Barnes, go somewhere, do something every day because I feel like that's good for my mental health. So I'm going to be going to Barnes to do some work, and also I love the Barnes & Noble Cafe mac and cheese. Like I don't know what it is, but I'm addicted and I love it. Hopefully I will be able to listen to this while I'm doing work for my remote job at Barnes, and then if I clean up my room I can listen to this, and then after my movie hopefully I can finish this off and then start on the other Black Girl tomorrow. But by the end of this weekend, by the end of Sunday, I need to have both these books done because I have another reading vlog that I want to film this month that has about the same amount of books, if not more, and some of them don't have audiobooks yet. I need to get on it. So yeah, those are kind of my plans for the rest of the day. Let's go ahead and head to Barnes & Noble.
You made me wanna leave, made me wanna die. It was all a dream, got lost in your eye. I could never leave when you were by my side. You always made me feel like I wasn't enough. Oh baby, you feel like torture. After all this time you're just a liar. You're burning in me just like fire. I'm just driven by my own desire. You know how to get me on my knees. All you want is for me to beg you, please. You know how to get me on my knees.
estrés solo es cuestión de repetirlo. Ya lo sabes, mami, no tengo que decirlo. Que me hacen tanto bien tu carita, tu piel y esos ojitos lindos que me encantan. Porque me ves con tu carita de santa, pero las tentaciones siempre me atrapan. De ser el dueño de tremenda muchacha. Quiero estar contigo, ven a mí. Quedarme en tu vida, decidí. Todo me recuerda a ti, las caricias y los besos que te di. Dicen algo más, dicen algo más. Y es que ha pasado tanto, todavía pienso lo que pasaba en mi cuarto. Te imaginaba ya con vestidito blanco, por ti es mi llanto. Bebé, acompáñame, sáname, que sea como en los viejos tiempos. Me hice adicto a todo de ti, y creo que está de más decir que
quiero estar contigo, ven a mí, quedarme.
Hello, so it is the next morning and I am about 2/3 of the way into, a little over 2/3 of the way into the Dark Days Club, so I still have an hour and a half left to finish, but I'm hoping to finish this up this afternoon. I cleaned up my library, so I was able to listen to a lot of it, and honestly, like, my thoughts are the same. I feel like I'm enjoying the story, I'm enjoying the book, and we've dove a lot more into like the magic and the darker side of London and these creatures and demons, so I think it's very like interesting the way that the author has gone about creating these creatures. I find it very interesting because I've never really read a book like it. Honestly, like, if I was to compare it to anything, it'd be like the Shadowhunters kind of vibe. That's kind of like how the demons are to me, and so I really like that. I enjoy the characters. So it's feeling like a 3.5. It's very enjoyable, but it's definitely not like blowing my mind or anything like that. So those are kind of just like my thoughts on the Dark Days Club as of now. I still have this portion left. I am on page 340, which is in the middle of chapter 22, so that's where I am. But I thought I would unbox my book boxes with y'all and show you what I bought at Barnes & Noble yesterday. I did not plan to buy anything from Barnes & Noble yesterday, but I ended up buying 3 books, but I feel like all of them had like a justification, so like I'm really not mad about it. So let's start with that. The first book that I spotted and wanted to get, they only had 1 copy on the shelves, and that is Immortal Pleasures by V. Castro. I really wanted to get this because this is my Patreon book club pick of the month for May, and I always try to buy our book club picks so I have them in physical copy, because even if I like don't love it, like I kind of want to have our book club picks together. I know of one this year that I have not bought because I really did not like that book and I didn't think I was. But generally I try to buy them. This one is about an ancient Aztec vampire that roams the modern world in search of vengeance and love in the seductive dark fantasy. So this is the book that we're going to be reading on my Patreon, so I picked it up. And the next book I picked up was actually this one, and it's Monstrilio. And this is a grief story where basically there is this little child that has some sort of illness that they've had since birth, so they knew that they were going to pass away, and they lasted years longer than they anticipated, and he eventually does pass away. So we see his mother basically going through grief, and we see other people as well. This doesn't switch off perspectives, but it'll be like the mom for the first chunk, and then the dad for the next chunk, and then someone else for the next chunk. I think there's 4 different perspectives in here, and so it doesn't switch back and forth, but it does have different perspectives. In Mexican culture, which is where the author's from, I believe, and the characters in the book, there is like this way to basically preserve people by carrying a piece of them around, like their body, like to mentally preserve them. And so the mom ends up taking part of his lung because he had a lung disorder, and it ends up growing into something that they could not have anticipated. It's definitely grief horror. It's one of my favorites, and I didn't own a physical copy, so I wanted to pick one up. And then next up, I got Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. I read Part of Your World last month, and I literally loved it, and Just for Summer recently came out, so I decided I was going to pick up the second book so I can continue on in the series and hopefully eventually get to Just for Summer. So those are the 3 books that I bought. So actually the first book I want to talk about is not from a book box, but I did get it in the mail recently, and it's This Ravenous Fate by Haley Dennings. This is the ARC copy of it. It comes out in August, and I also have an e-ARC of it, so I'm really excited. This should be read hopefully in an upcoming video as well. And Haley Dennings, if you don't know, she was a booktuber. She makes videos sometimes now, but it's more about writing, and her channel's Pages of Haley. And so this is a 1920s like Harlem Renaissance queer sapphic vampire story. So it's like a lot of different things. I know it has romance in it, it's historical, it has vampires, it is queer. So I am really excited to dive into this, and I just think it's going to be so good. I've been seeing her post about it on her close friend story, her writing this story for years, and her just writing journey, and so I'm really happy that she's getting her first book published, and I'm just really excited for her, so I can't wait to read it. And then I got my Aardvark book club box. I'm not sponsored by Aardvark. I know a couple of my friends are. I'm not. I don't have a code or affiliation with them at all, but I love Aardvark so much. Like, I think that they are changing the game of book boxes. Like, they did something so similar to Book of the Month, but better. So I got 3 books this month. The first one I got was Evocation by S.T. Gibson. I believe this one is more of a fantasy release from this author. They had a book earlier this year that I have not read yet because everybody said it was just like meh, and I've been scared to read it because I love A Diary of Blood so much. But this is their new release that is more like fantasy leaning, so I can't wait to try that. And then I bought this book called The Garden by Claire Beams. I've never heard of this book before, but I feel like Aardvark is a type of box where there are very familiar picks that you really want to pick up, but then there are really interesting picks that you haven't heard of, and because you're already getting the box and add-ons are $10, you feel like you're getting a really good deal of buying a book that you may have not heard of in a hardcover for $10. It is a little bit more expensive at $18 a month, I believe, than Book of the Month, but I just love their picks. This one takes place in 1948, and it's about a woman who's had miscarriages previously and wants to give her husband a child, and she's pregnant again, so she goes to this hospital in the Berkshires, and it's run by a husband and wife team of doctors that are pioneering a cure for her condition. And I believe that there is this garden that's walled in on the grounds, and the doctor's plan begins to crumble, and then the main character and her fellow patients make a desperate bid to harness the power of the garden for themselves. So this one I think sounds really good. Probably gonna have themes of like infertility and motherhood, which I love reading about, so I'm really excited to pick that one up. And the last book that I have is You Know What You Did, which is also of course a recent release, and this one I just know is a heart-pounding debut thriller from a first-generation Vietnamese-American artist who must confront nightmares past and present, and she also has OCD, so I'm really excited for that representation, and I'm just excited to check it out. And the bookmarks for this month are this beautiful periwinkle and like golden yellow. I don't even like feel particularly drawn to those colors. I really like periwinkle though, actually, but with yellow it just looks so good though. Like, I just didn't anticipate. And then lastly we have Book of the Month, of course, which here she is, my blue box here. Book of the Month, and I only got 1 book this month. That's all that was drawing to me, and that is The Return of Ellie Black, which was on my anticipated releases, which I never posted that video because it just kind of got out of whack. But this one is about a missing girl who returns, but that isn't the end of the story. It's only the beginning, and I know there's a detective perspective in this, and I really love that, so I'm excited to pick it up. So those are all the books that I've got recently, and we are planning to get more books today because I'm actually going to some little free libraries in my area, and I'm filming a separate video for that, so you will see all that footage over there. But I thought it'd be fun to go over the books that I've gotten in the past like week. Yeah, I'm gonna head off to do those little free libraries with my mom, and then I will be coming back hopefully pretty early because it's actually 10:14. We're supposed to leave at 10, but it's 10:15-ish now, so we're gonna head off for a couple hours. My mom needs to be back by 1 because she works, and so I'll be back pretty early, hopefully be able to finish off the Dark Days Club, and then I have some reading sprints later at 7, and I definitely want to finish the Dark Days Club before I do my reading sprint so I can read the other black girl in my reading sprints. So I'm going to go head off to those little free libraries. Also, I'm hungry and I warmed up a bagel sandwich my mom made, so I'm gonna go eat that. I'm back to update y'all because I ended up finishing the Dark Days Club earlier today, which is amazing. I am settling on a 3.5 for this one. I think that this one is really fun. Like, if you want Shadowhunters combined with Bridgerton, that's literally what this book is to me, and I had such a good time reading it, and I feel like it doesn't have like the typical YA problems that we get really annoyed with. I think it's a really well-rounded book. I could have done with a little bit more character development. I feel like our main character was really fleshed out, but her family and the side characters were not as fleshed out as I would have liked them to be. But I think this is a series, so it has more to come. I really enjoyed the world building and just like the world in general. I think it could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but what we did have, I really enjoyed, and I thought the world and the dynamics and these very interesting demons and this Dark Days Club is kind of really just fascinating. So I really enjoyed the world that was created in this book, and the writing I really didn't notice, and overall, like, it was a fun time, and I would definitely recommend this if you again are looking for like a YA Shadowhunters meets Bridgerton. I think that that is literally a perfect pitch for this book. But it isn't anything that I'm going to write home about. I will definitely put this in recommendations videos, but it's also not like my most favorite book of all time. So I'm happy that I was able to pull this one from the jar and finally get around to reading it. And I finished that while organizing my library and filming my book organization part of my summer reset video, and I actually finished that book up while doing that. So I ended up starting The Other Black Girl, and I got way further into this than I anticipated. This is actually a really easy listen. Like, I feel like the Dark Days Club is the type of book where you really need to pay attention when you're reading it. Even if you're listening on audio, like, you really need to pay attention and be kind of locked in, because when they have accents and like it has more like historical language and it has like, you know, fantasy elements, while this one is very much modern day, and I feel like there's not a ton of plot happening so far, but it is kind of intriguing at the same time. So I feel like it's a very easy listen. We follow our main character. Her name is Nella, and she is the only black girl at the Wagner's, and she's the only black girl at Wagner's Books, which is a publishing company. She is a editorial assistant, and so this girl Hazel May begins working in the cubicle beside hers, and she is also a fellow black girl. She's born and raised in Harlem, Hazel is, and she just kind of exudes this confidence that's very intriguing to our main character. She's very kind of almost entranced by her, and for our main character, there are some things happening in the office that's kind of painting her not in the best light, and so people are starting to favor the new girl Hazel more than our main character Nella. And also Nella receives a letter on her desk that says "Leave Wagner now," and she doesn't know who it was sent by. I presume that she is going to think that it is from the other black girl, but so far in the book, she just got the letter pretty recently. Where I am in the book, I'm about on page about 115, and she so far has not really discovered or thought about who sent the letter. Like, she has thought about it, but like she hasn't come to a concrete conclusion about who sent the letter yet. So I'm excited to see where it's going to lead. As I said, it's a very easy listen. I could definitely see myself getting through a good portion of this tonight, and I'm hoping, as I said, to be done with all of these books by the end of tomorrow, Sunday. And I think that's definitely really reasonable, especially because I'm actually on reading sprints for Escape the Readathon. I'm a game master, and so I'm hosting some reading sprints over on my public channel, the main channel, which you're watching right now, which I never really do. I have a Patreon, and I host reading sprints over there at least 2 times a month, sometimes 3, 4, because I do reading sprints after a lot of our other live shows for book club discussions and stuff like that, but I very rarely host them on my main public channel, so it's a little scary to me, but here I am doing it. So I'm probably going to be doing sprints later into the night. When I'm on Patreon, I don't do them as late because there's not as big of a group of people, so people are often like leaving and, you know, going to bed. I don't really have a big international audience on my Patreon, so I feel like people are very much like on my schedule, and like I will stay up late till like 2-3, but I know for other people they got work at 5:30. But for Escape the Readathon, I feel like a lot of people are international, and so I will probably be doing sprints pretty late till tonight and hopefully be able to get through a good portion of this. And I know a lot of people really don't like this book. So far, I'm not mad at it. I think it's interesting, like talking about the publishing industry and how the main character is kind of trying to befriend people that are within her her colleagues, and also like her not liking her boss, like very stereotypical stuff. I've never worked a traditional like 9-to-5 like corporate in-person job, so I don't know what that's like. So seeing that in this is very interesting, like the very much like corporate nature of it all I think is very, very interesting. So I'm excited to continue on with this. I don't really see why people hate it so much, but maybe I will eventually. So I ended up finishing The Other Black Girl. It's actually Monday, but I finished this Saturday night, so I did finish this before I said I wanted to, so I'm really proud of myself for finishing this video. This book, honestly, I really am still kind of deciding on my rating because this was a very easy read. It kept me engaged throughout the story, but I didn't feel any attachment to the characters. I felt like they kind of fell flat, especially the main character. I feel like she didn't really have a lot to her, a lot of substance, and she wasn't very fleshed out. And the way the story went in the end, I really did not enjoy it. I felt like it was like kind of dumb and stupid. Like I really did not like where the story ended up going. So I think I'm gonna settle on a 2-star for this one because I really just, in the beginning, I think when I filmed my first clip for this book, I was like, oh, I don't understand why everybody hates it, because so far it's pretty engaging and an easy listen / read, and it definitely is, so I can't fault it for that. But again, like I didn't feel any connection to the story at all, and I literally hated where it went in the end. Like this book does talk a lot about hair though, and I love those aspects of it. It does kind of have to do with like the twist in the story as well, which I said I didn't like, but I like the commentary around it. And I also like the commentary of like black women or just black people in general being in a corporate workplace, and I thought that was very interesting. So that's why it definitely is not a 1-star, because I enjoyed the commentary in the story, but I didn't enjoy the plot, the ending, or the characters. So overall, this one was just a 2-star read for me. It was fast-paced and it was engaging, but the plot was severely lacking in my opinion. So that means we finished all 4 books that we were supposed to read for this video, so I'm going to do a little wrap up and summarize everything that I read. So the first book I read when I was still at school, so that's kind of crazy. Y'all have seen me at school packing up and then coming home, which is kind of crazy. But that was A Song Below Water by Bethany C. Morrow. This was definitely not a bad book at all, and I again enjoyed a lot of the commentary that was in this story, and I enjoyed the relationship between the characters, but they were honestly really hard to differentiate. And I feel like this book was sold to me as a book about black mermaids / sirens, but it really is about black women or girls who happen to be mermaids / sirens. It's not really about them being mermaids or sirens. It's more supposed to be like a metaphor for other things, which is fine, but it just wasn't what I expected. And I feel like the plot itself was very slow, and it could have been fleshed out a lot more because it didn't have much plot. And then the second book I read was Kisscut by Karen Slaughter. This is the second book in the Grant County series, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. I really, really like this one. Honestly, I might bump it up to 4.5 because I really liked this one. It is not as good as the first book in my opinion, but there is another case in this one, and this one is really dark because it has to do with children and genital mutilation and basically like preying on children and creating inappropriate things with children. I'm not gonna like say the word because I don't want my video to get blacklisted by YouTube, but I feel like you can kind of gather what this book is about. And I feel like Karen Slaughter has excellent writing. Her characters are always so amazing, and I feel so attached to them even if they're so different than me personally. I just love her characters, and I think like the way that she dives into these darker, and I feel like she has so much empathy while diving into these darker topics. I just love it so much, and I love the series. I can't wait to continue. And then the third book I read was The Dark Days Club by Allison Goodman. This one I ended up giving 3.5 stars, and this is a really interesting historical fantasy that takes place around the same time as Bridgerton. So if you like Bridgerton and Shadowhunters, I would recommend this because I feel like it's a great combination of that. I know I said that earlier in this video, but it really truly is. This one, I think like the world was so interesting, and I really liked the development that the author had of this world. I think it was just so excellently done, and I think like for a YA, this had a lot going on, which I really enjoyed, and I enjoy kind of like more of like the romantic elements that were included in this story. And I think like this really was reminiscent of the fantasy that I used to read back when I was like 14, 15. So it was just very nostalgic for me to read this, and I definitely had a good time reading it. It was a good read, but it wasn't anything that I'm going to absolutely rave about on my channel. And then the last book, which we just talked about, was The Other Black Girl, which I gave 2 stars, and we just talked about it, so I'm not gonna harp on it too much. But just overall, I didn't like where the plot went. I didn't care about the characters, but I think the commentary was really interesting. But I think the commentary in itself was very heavy-handed as well, and I didn't like that. It was like simultaneously heavy-handed but also not enough at the same time. So here are the 4 books, and honestly, besides Karen Slaughter, I really would not have gotten to these other 3 books, so I'm really happy I did. We didn't have the best ratings in this video, but I had 2 books that I really liked, one that I thought was okay and one that I didn't really like. So I feel like that is kind of an okay mixture, especially because I got 2 YA books and 2 adult books, which I feel like kind of is representative of my shelves. And these were all varying different genres, which I definitely enjoyed. I feel like that was really nice. And then also I got some Black authors in here as well, so that was really fun for me, and I'm really happy I did this video, and I'm caught up on my TBR jar. Hopefully I won't get behind so I don't have to make another one of these videos, but if you liked this video, let me know down below, and maybe I'll consider like holding off on maybe like 3 and doing another installment in this. I guess maybe it's a series, I don't know. I have to see if I'm going to do more of them or not to decide whether it's going to be a series or not. If you made it to the end of this video, leave a little star emoji down below, and I will see y'all in my next one. Bye, everybody.
I'm writing rhymes in the kitchen, soaking the moments we live in, yeah. You got the nerve to be on me, taking your life out of urgent. If you got my number, don't ask me, cause baby,